The first of our sessions this afternoon, of our presentations, is from Birmingham Trading Standards. We were hoping to have the head of Trading Standards, Sajila Nasir, with us. She sent her apologies. She has sent in her place two gentlemen. I'm not sure what that says. It takes two men to do the job of one woman. But we're very pleased to have with us Mr. Veer Aluwalia, who is the operations manager for Birmingham Trading Standards, and Mr. Mohammed Tariq, who is a senior trading standards officer. And they're going to be speaking to us on the very important and very quite crucial subject, really, of halal food fraud. So if you kindly put your hands together for our respected gentlemen.
Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to everybody, and thanks once again to the organisers for inviting us to this event. And I'm sure you're all enjoying your meal. I've certainly enjoyed my meal, but I'm going to try and carry on with what I'm really here for today. Myself and my colleague Mohammed Tariq, we're just going to talk about our experiences in Birmingham. And what I'm saying today really is from Birmingham's point of view. We work for Birmingham City Council, and there are nearly 200 trading standards across the country. And I want to share with you some of the experience we've had over the last 2 or 3 years, where we've looked at issues surrounding the supply of halal, and unfortunately the misuse of the word halal, and basically people trying to cheat the consumers. Okay. I think you're all familiar with, if you go down any high street, especially in the areas of Birmingham and many areas in London, lots of premises claim to supply halal meat. Could be restaurants, could be takeaways, butchers, wholesalers. You see advertisements everywhere. You look at your Asian publications, internet, posters, leaflets, and obviously websites. There's lots of claims made about, we're supplying halal, halal-only meat, and so forth. And of course now there's a number of bodies like HFA and other bodies accredited trying to provide reassurance for consumers and raise the standard within the industry. And because of their success, unfortunately, that's also attracted some other people who misuse their logos and claim to be accredited by these bodies who are not. And that's sometimes things we have to look at. So really, what is trading standards about? And although I'm from Birmingham, this is common to all trading standards. We're there to try and protect the interest of the consumer, and also at the same time protecting the interest of the legitimate traders. But unfortunately, there are times when we have to take appropriate action against those making false and misleading claims. And as the quote there says, HFA trying to work with trading standards, but of course we are an independent body, we're an independent enforcement body through the council and through the government. We're appointed to look after these matters. One of the presenters this morning talked about some legislation. Within the UK, the legislation that the trading standards apply is, for example, the Consumer Protection from Unfair Trading Regulations. And to put it simply, that covers a whole gambit of anything misleading, that when you're dealing with a trader as a consumer, if a misleading claim is made, that's where we come in. There are obviously important food legislation. Although I'm not an environmental health officer, there is a degree of overlap with what we enforce. In this area for trading standards also, actually, the Trademarks Act comes in. So, for example, if the HFA logo has been trademarked, that gives the body extra protection. So if somebody misuses that, copies that, whatever, they can come to trading standards and we can take action for somebody falsely using that logo. And in the more serious cases, where we can show somebody has set out dishonestly from the outset to mislead people, to con people, and where we think we've got the evidence, they may actually be cases of fraud. And that would be in the more extreme cases, and those matters could end up in the Crown Court. We often get asked, well, why do we not do something on some occasions? Why do we prosecute sometimes on some occasions? All trading standards have what we call our enforcement policy. And when we take action, we have to consider what's appropriate. So obviously, from an enforcement point of view, is the evidence there? We have to have sufficient evidence to mount a case. And we also have to look at, is it in the public interest to mount a case? So often, somebody will make a complaint to us expecting us to prosecute somebody. But often we might say, well, the first point is we might want to advise them, speak with them, work with them. If that doesn't work, sometimes we go to the next stage where they may receive a warning. But ultimately, if the trader ignores our advice or the breach is such serious that we view it to be, beyond just advice or warnings, then we have the option of taking a prosecution, and then we let the courts decide. So typically the kind of examples we in Birmingham Trading Standards have come across is, like I've said, the falsely using logos such as HFAs, claiming to be accredited, claiming to be members. Then there are traders that claim to supply halal meat only, and unfortunately that's not always true. And obviously that's repercussions for consumers out there who are very sensitive about this issue and feel very strongly if they have been misled. And then, as well as the retailers, butchers, we have slaughterhouses, wholesalers supplying the meat. So we have to look at the whole supply chain, really. And as HFA pointed out, obviously, the traceability issue is very important for us. So when my colleague talks about some of the examples, it's very important when we go to a retailer, to a wholesaler, that they've got documentation to prove where the meat is from. So it's, anybody can say, my meat here is halal, but how do you prove it? What's the certification? What's the documentation? Can you show us invoices for where you got it from? Then we go to the wholesaler saying, where have you got it from? And we have to trace it right up to the supply chain, and we have to have proper documentation to prove what they're claiming. And often, occasionally that can mean going right to the source. And in cases like Tariq's we've had to go to Ireland to prove some source. And often they've said, actually, no, this batch that you're talking about here, this was never halal. And unfortunately, those have led to court cases. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hand you over to Mohammed Tariq, who's one of our investigating officers, and he's actually done a number of threes. So I'm going to ask Tariq to talk about 3 or 4 examples. Thank you, Tariq.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammed Tariq. I'm a Senior Trading Standards Enforcement Officer from Birmingham City Council. Basically, I'm just going to talk about a couple of the cases that Birmingham has undertaken in relation to halal meat fraud. The first case is a meat supplier. Now, this meat supplier was from Bradford, and basically what he was doing is supplying meat in the Birmingham area to shopkeepers and putting a false label on there saying it was accredited by an accredited agency, and it wasn't. So we've got the statements from the relevant authority whose labels or trademarks were breached, got the warrants, and basically went to Bradford, executed the warrants with the police, and took the company to court. They were fined nearly £20,000, and basically, hopefully they learnt the lesson. Second case that I was involved in was a premises called the Real China. Now, this was more of a serious fraud going on here, because basically it was a run-up to Ramadan, and all of a sudden posters went up in this premises saying all our meat is halal. So you had the local Muslim community, month up to Ramadan, sorry, not Ramadan, Eid it was Eid, going into this premises. We went in, done an inspection on actual Eid day, and found out that none of the meat that was being supplied was halal. So we seized some products, basically did a traceability exercise, and found out that the meat came from abattoirs or wholesalers that didn't actually supply any halal meat at all. So this trader was taken to court, business closed down, but we still managed to get hold of the director, and I mean, he was fined nearly £9,000, but at the end of the day it was a successful prosecution. One of the biggest cases that Birmingham Trading Standards have undertaken was in relation to a wholesaler based in the Birmingham area. This was part of an ongoing project that Birmingham Trading Standards undertook in relation to halal meat fraud. I happened to go into a premises, asked for, and this was during the month of Ramadan, asked for a box of halal meat. On the documentation, receipts, the trader basically confirmed it was halal meat. Did some traceability checks on it. It went back to a slaughterhouse in Ireland, who confirmed that they don't do any halal meat. The worst thing about this, the trader actually knew I work for Trading Standards as well, so they basically just supply the meat. Investigation was taken. Documentations were seized. We undertook other exercises as well in relation to this project, and he was fined a total of £65,000. I know it's got £35,000 there, but it was actually £65,000. Since then, the company's closed down and is trading under another company. Halal meat fraud is serious because at the end of the day, you're misleading members of the public. And at the end of the day, we try our best to clamp down on this illicit trade. It depends as well, at the end of the day, with the evidence, it's not very easy actually taking halal meat cases to court. But at the end of the day, if we get a complaint, it's our duty to investigate. It's okay.
I'll just reiterate that. I mean, all those cases, they take a lot of work. I mean, the last example, some of these cases involve surveillance. We have to interview a number of companies. We have to go to, up and down the country because sometimes the retailers or the people we're investigating might be innocent victims of other traders. But that's why within the trade, we say it's very important that you carry out due diligence or take reasonable precautions. Because unfortunately in today's world, it's not always enough just to trust the person you're dealing with. And you do have to insist upon documentation so that you can protect yourself. So often we've been to 3, 4, 5 different people in the supply chain. And to try and get them to state evidence that can be used in court is always difficult because a lot of people are sensitive about this area and they're thinking, oh God, I don't want to go to court. I might have to stand up in court. The press are going to cover this because it's a public interest. But we have had some successful cases, and what we're hoping is that we've sent a message to the trade and also to the public that something can be done on occasions, and that's why. And also, although we don't endorse bodies like HFA and HMC because we're independent, we do welcome anybody who's there trying to raise the standards within the industry and provide that extra reassurance for the public, which is what we're really all about. Thank you very much.
Excellent.